Hey everybody, it's Dr. Levi, the Gamer's Doctor, the eSports Doctor, here today with part 1 of our series for OSU. OSU is a very intense rhythmic e-game that many people play and develop repetitive stress injuries from. So today we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about RSI. What is it exactly? How do we define that? How does it affect the OSU community? And we're grateful today to have one of the OSU competitive, iconic players, Mr. HappyStick. So happy to have you with us.
I'm happy to be here. I'm really glad that we're finally opening up the front of health-related stuff.
Absolutely.
When it comes to your joints and your shoulders and everything involved in that, because a lot of people have issues.
Right.
And they don't really know where to turn. They don't really know what it is, what to do with it, how to prevent it from ever even occurring.
Right.
So, yeah, that's awesome.
Well, today we're going to talk about RSI, and really we're going to go down to the what I call the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts of RSI, because we throw that term around a lot. But the issue is, do you really understand what it means? And then if you do, great. How do you define it? But more importantly, how do you prevent it? So RSI, repetitive stress injuries, are caused by, again, doing the same motion over and over. It can be caused by playing video games. eSports athletes develop this, of course. If you do a lot of texting, a lot of typing, a lot of writing, a lot of driving, all of these things, because of the posture of the hand and the wrist and the elbow, can cause you to develop a repetitive stress injury. And you know, with OSU, of course, with the tablet, with the stylus, as well as the keyboard, it's constant. It's a high-intensity game.
It is. It is. It's also very easy to just play for hours on end without really allowing yourself a break.
Exactly.
And then you're 6 hours in, and then you stop, and then suddenly you realize that your hands really, really hurt.
Right. And you can also develop what I call the OSU barnacle, which is from playing so much.
I do have.
You have several.
I have several, yes.
Several. Right.
They're not beauties.
They're not beauties at all. These are really thickened calluses that you can develop from playing OSU, depending on how you're holding the stylus, or how you rest your hand. And HappyStick actually has them. So we'll talk about how RSI really impacts not only the quality of play, but also the strength of your hands and your ability to play for long stretches of time. Because you play for how many hours a day?
I play from anywhere from 6 to 12 hours a day, depending on how I'm feeling on any particular day.
Right. And I'm sure most players will play between 4, 12, maybe 14 hours a day. So it's a lot of time. So again, if you think about it, just the amount of time alone will give you the propensity of developing RSI, repetitive stress injuries. So again, it's from overuse of your hands, overuse of your joints, overuse of your tendons and muscles and ligaments. Therefore, you develop pain, an inability to play well, or you decrease the speed at which you can play.
For a lot of people, it just kind of creeps up on them more. I personally am one of the lucky ones in the sense that when I do find myself having issues, I just kind of calm down and I don't play as much.
Yes.
Or I do exercises, make sure to drink enough water, etc. But it's so easy for it to just creep up on you where you're fine for a year and then suddenly you're in a ton of pain.
Right.
And what is it? There's, RSI.
There's RSI. So RSI is the big arc. And then under RSI, there's carpal tunnel.
Right.
There's tendinitis.
Okay.
There's gamer's thumb. There's cubital tunnel. There's repetitive stress injury to the shoulder, rotator cuff tendinitis, proximal anterior biceps tendinitis. There are postural issues. The list goes on and on. It's a lot. And if you think about it, all of those HappyStick are under the arc of repetitive stress injuries. Mm-hmm. So I think now you know. This is volume 1 of repetitive stress injuries for OSU. So remember, this is for overuse of any body part, specifically of the upper extremity that we're referring to for this incredible rhythmic game, OSU. Any thoughts?
Well, a short elaboration on the difference between carpal tunnel and tendinitis, because people hear those terms thrown around, but they don't necessarily know what they mean.
Fantastic. So let's talk about that. So again, repetitive stress injury, that's the major arc. And under that, there's carpal tunnel, cubital tunnel, tendinitis, and a lot of different itises. And the itis simply means inflammation.
Okay.
It means that the body is saying, hey, back off. I don't like what you're doing to me. Play a little bit less, take care of me more. The hand is saying, I don't like this feeling. The elbow can say the same to you. So the key here is to listen to your body. Now, what is carpal tunnel? Well, carpal tunnel is inflammation of the median nerve. Here in the wrist, it's from the transverse carpal ligament compressing the median nerve, and the nerve does not get enough blood supply and nutrition. Therefore, you get pain. Now, you have pain in the hand in this area, as well as numbness and tingling in your thumb, index finger, middle finger, and the radial aspect or radial half of your ring finger. Now, when this happens, of course, people lose dexterity in their hands, they lose strength, and the inability to play for a very long period of time because they just have no dexterity. The hand hurts.
It's not just painful, you're also just worse off.
Exactly correct. Exactly right. And this really affects your gaming career, but more importantly, it affects your ability to use your hands when you're not even gaming. So that's carpal tunnel. How do we address carpal tunnel? Well, with therapy, sometimes with medication, with splinting, with steroid injections, and of course, the last thing you ever want to think about would be surgery. But of course, acupuncture we also use for carpal tunnel. Now, let's talk about tendinitis. So, tendinitis of the wrist or of the hand is inflammation of either the flexor tendons or the extensor tendons. The back of the hand and wrist, extensor tendons. This palmar aspect, the flexor tendons. This is flexion of the fingers, extension of the fingers. So,
what would you feel in terms of tendinitis? Would it just be painful?
Pain and swelling.
Okay.
Those are two things. So if you're doing a lot of keyboard work or a lot of mouse work, your fingers will actually ache. They can become very swollen. They can become very red. And the hand is just angry. It doesn't like the amount of work that it's doing.
Is that one easier to treat in the sense that a lot of rest will likely make it better versus carpal tunnel?
Well, great question. Sometimes. Depends on the person.
Okay.
Depends on the person. Depends on how much they're playing. Depends on which games that they're playing. Are they using a mouse, a stylus, only the keyboard?
Okay.
It all depends on what you're using when you're gaming. Now, let's also talk about gamer's thumb. Gamer's thumb is something that I see at least 2 or 3 times a month. And this is tendinitis, which is very interesting. It's tendinitis of the extensor tendons of the thumb.
Very specific.
Very specific type, as well as tendinitis of the flexor tendon. So the thumb is injured basically the front and back. Okay. So someone has locking of their thumb and they have pain at the back of their thumb.
Okay.
So again, it's from a lot of clicking,
a
lot of mouse use, it's a lot of writing, a lot of texting.
Yeah.
So these are things that we believe if you do them, you'll feel it. You know when your body's inflamed. You know when your body's developing repetitive stress injury like carpal tunnel or tendinitis or cubital tunnel or gamer's thumb. So this is our first part on OSU with respect to repetitive stress injuries. This is Dr. Levi, the Gamer's Doctor. Please subscribe below and like us. And I really appreciate our amazing guest, the iconic OSU player, HappyStick.
Some exercises.
Absolutely. Let's get ready. This is Dr. Levi. Bye.